Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Kelly Green Hour as we are now in week 17 of the National Football League, where your Philadelphia Eagles are set to do battle with the Dallas Cowboys with a chance to clinch the NFC East. And this has been one of the least hyped Eagles Cowboys weeks I can ever remember. I'm your host, LG Harrell, and as always, I am joined by my co host, Connor Donald. Connor, what's going on? How was your Christmas?
Christmas was chaos. I was just telling you before, getting kids where they need to be, and doing all this stuff with family. And it is exhausting. It is great, but it is exhausting. But I agree with you. I mean, even sweeping the Cowboys this year has lost some of its allure and luster, given the circumstances of no Jalen Hurts. No Nakobe Dean, who's been a huge piece of the Eagles. No Dak, no CD, no Trayvon Diggs, no Demire Overshown. Like, so many pieces that just aren't going to be there that have been crucial pieces of their teams this year and in prior years. So it is, a win over Dallas is a win over Dallas. It's just Dallas week is not like it used to be.
No, definitely not. I don't want to say I'm not excited because I'm going to the game, so I want to be excited for it. But it's tough because without Jalen Hurts, and we got to watch Kenny Pickett play. But before we jump into it, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LGRaw54, and follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcast at the Eagles Pinpool Network. And as always, like, subscribe, rate, review, everything. Great, a bunch of great shows on the channel. So please subscribe and watch them all. And then if you're joining us live, let us know your thoughts on this upcoming game. Kenny Pickett, are you confident? I'm not. Just as a spoiler alert. I do think, like you mentioned, the loss or not having Nakobe Dean, who's doubtful, that's going to be a lot bigger than people think, because obviously we have Zach Baun, but the tandem of Baun and Dean has been outstanding together. And now you're going to see Oren Burks probably get the start next to Baun in place of Dean. And who the heck knows what's going to happen there. We'll see what Vic Fangio does to kind of quote unquote protect Oren Burks. And then on the offensive side of the ball, what is Kellen Moore going to do to help Kenny Pickett? Now, obviously, when Kenny came into the game and it was 12 plays into the game plan all week was for Jalen Hurts to start and play and not miss a snap, and that's what the game plan was for. And who knows how much practice time Kenny Pickett got with the ones, and it's tough to go in there and change up the entire offense in the middle of a game. Now, Kenny Pickett has had a full week of practice knowing that he's going to be the starter. So I'm sure we're going to see a different offense. You're not going to see as much RPO because that's not Kenny Pickett's game. That's Jalen Hurts' game. You'll probably see a lot of under center to help, Saquon also, get the play action game going. So I do think we're going to see a different offense. Now the weather's going to play a crucial factor. It's supposed to rain. It's going to be like 60 degrees, which is hot this time of year, but it's going to rain I'm pretty sure it's going to rain the entire game. So ball handling is going to play a crucial part in this game with the weather. And we know Dallas, ever since Micah Parsons came back from his injury, Dallas leads the league in turnovers and sacks, if I'm not mistaken. So that's going to play a key part. And I know, and like you mentioned, DeMarvion Overstrong, Diggs, like they are missing some players. DeMarcus Lawrence, I think, is going to be out. I'm not 100% sure. But Dallas is still, they're going to look to take the ball away from Kenny Pickett, who is prone to turning the ball over, which we saw with the Steelers.
Yeah, you hit on some great points. I mean, this feels like it's going to be a Saquon Barkley game, a Saquon Barkley day. It just makes the most sense to try and give him the best opportunity to see, do we let him go for the record or not in week 18? And I mean, it would be really nice to shore up the division this week because, there's been a lot of talk of like some people want to see the everyone play week 18, some don't. I personally, if we can lock things up this week, would be very happy to rest all the starters as much as possible in week 18. We've mentioned it on the last episode. We've kind of run through a gauntlet of having the week 5 bye. And since then, you can see it starting to wear on some of these guys, that early bye. So I would love to get it locked up this week with Kenny Pickett and win it in the ugliest fashion. We need to win it just to wrap up this division and get it over with. Because there is a big difference between giving the opportunity, forcing us to play week 18, giving Washington an opportunity in week 18 to take the division as well. It's something you don't want to end up having to think about. And the opportunity is there because for the most part, I mean, Nakobe Dean is out. Nakobe Dean is definitely a focal point of that defense. But the defense is fairly intact in comparison to the offense, who we saw without Jalen Hurts is definitely a shell of themselves. Even though Kenny Pickett, like we said, he stepped in, he did his job, but we know he's prone to making mistakes. If you force him to throw the football enough and make him uncomfortable, he's probably going to turn the ball over. Micah Parsons is going to play, so we know Micah Parsons could get back there and could wreak some havoc. So hopefully, like you said, especially with the weather thrown into the mix too, like that just feels like Kenny Pickett making bad decisions and committing some really bad turnovers, and it's definitely not something you want to see. So hopefully, they can keep the game on the ground, and they can take advantage of a Dallas Cowboys defense that, hasn't been that good against the run and is just getting more banged up since the last time we saw them, which would hopefully lead us to believe that the run defense might even be weaker. So it'll be interesting to see what, strategy they implement. I mean, I know a lot of people have said, Kenny Pickett came in, cold turkey off the bench, hadn't seen a lot of work with the ones. Now they had a week to prepare with like a Kenny, more of a offense based around Kenny Pickett. So what is that going to look like? And how is it that we can take advantage of this Dallas Cowboys defense with Kenny Pickett and with Saquon Barkley? Because we did see it last week a lot that, they were able to stack the box a lot more. They're able to put a lot more guys in there without Jalen Hurts back there to use his feet. So just because the Dallas Cowboys run defense is really bad, does that necessarily mean that we can take advantage of it based on the circumstance? Like, how do you offload the box a bit to give Saquon Barkley a chance to open up some holes and to run the football? And I mean, it probably starts with the offensive line doing a lot better than they did last week as well. But there's a lot of different things at play that hopefully they're going to come in a lot more prepared than they were last week. Obviously, nothing can prepare you for your starting quarterback going out 11 plays into the game.
Yeah, and once, like I mentioned on on Monday, once Washington was aware that Jalen wasn't going to come back in, they just keyed in on Saquon, and that's what Dallas is going to do. Now, Kenny Pickett does have some functioning mobility. You saw it at the University of Pittsburgh, where he was able to run. We'll see if that's implemented in the game, but if they are going to keep a version of the RPO game in on the play call sheet, they should, or he should keep it just to keep Dallas's defense honest. I'm not saying they have to run it all the time, but just to keep them honest, maybe Kenny Pickett keeps it, but it should be a Saquon Barkley game. Like you mentioned, he's 268 yards short, I think, of the Eric Dickerson number. Now, if he obviously, depending on what happens in this game, will be dependent upon what happens week 18 in terms of who plays and who doesn't. But obviously, if he gets another 150 yards, like that's very doable to where he would be able to go out there and break the record next week in the first half, maybe, and then get him out in the second half. Also, if you think about it, Jalen only played 12 plays last week. He's not going to play this week. Do you risk not playing Jalen, if Jalen is healthy, not playing him next week and going pretty much 3 weeks without playing a game, going right into a playoff game? That would be something that Coach Sirianni and the Eagles are going to have to think about, because as good as Jalen is, not playing football at football game speed for 3 weeks could be detrimental. And obviously it's going to depend on matchups. Like Right now, it could be Washington. It could be Green Bay. It could be Tampa Bay. Like they're all tough opponents. Excuse me. That really could pose an issue for Jalen Hurts in the offense if Jalen hasn't played for 3 weeks.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, some people have kind of talked about it. It's like, do you treat it like a preseason game and just, if Jalen Hurts, if he's good to go next week, do you run him out there for, a half, a drive or two and make sure that, he gets some of that gameplay in? Because definitely, like you said, play him for without like meaningful football for 3 weeks can definitely be detrimental to you come week one. And what do you do to get ready for that? And especially coming off of a concussion too. Concussions are not something necessarily to mess with. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they manage. There's going to be a lot of different things at play, even with win or lose this week. There's going to be a lot of different things at play that's going to have to be considered by Nick Sirianni and this coaching staff in deciding what's going to be best, both for the health of the team, but at the same time, or for the health of the players, but at the same time, also for the benefit of the team heading into a big playoff matchup where, the past few times the odds have not been in our favor when playing in the first round. In recent memory, beyond, making the trip to the Super Bowl, we've seen some pretty rough games when missing players or having some players coming in cold or banged up. We've seen that have a major impact. So it'll be really interesting to see how they manage some of these circumstances coming out of this game, win or lose.
And I forgot to mention the most important fact in this game, or the most important part of this game. They're wearing the Kelly Green uniforms. And obviously our podcast is called the Kelly Green Hour. So that's important. You don't want to lose in those beautiful jerseys that are going to be and this was supposed to be a 4:25 game. It would have been darker, would have looked a lot better, but 1 o'clock still going to look good with the link all Kelly Greened up. I'll be wearing my Kelly Green Jason Kelsey jersey as as the game kicks off at 1 o'clock Eastern time here in Philly at Lincoln Financial Field. I meant to mention that at the beginning of the show. I forgot, so my apologies. But yeah, so I mean, and Alshon Jeffrey is the honorary captain this week. And remember that the touchdown catch he had in the Super Bowl from Nick Foles with a torn rotator cuff. I don't know how this dude was playing football for as long as he had that torn rotator cuff in 2017. He was such a baller for the Eagles back then. But I didn't mean to get off topic there. But like you said, let's start on the offensive side of the football. Obviously, it starts up front with the offensive line. They have to play a lot better than they did last week. And let's try to get Saquon Barkley going to set the tone early. And when Kenny Pickett does throw the football, whether it's play action, shotgun, pistol, whatever it is, the Eagles threw the ball to 3 guys last week: A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Kenny Gainwell. Obviously, the first 2, you want them to get as many targets as possible, but they're going to have to throw the ball elsewhere. Grant Calcaterra, Saquon Barkley, Jahan Dotson, I guess. Like, they're going to have to find a way to get other people involved because you cannot have it to where you're just throwing the ball and keying in on 2 or 3 guys in the passing game.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that point. Like, you can't, like we saw last week, I mean, we scrutinize the weaponry of the Washington Commanders and say they're probably a couple weapons away, but they were able to use so many different weapons. And so what? Jamison Crowder went 2 for 21 and 2 touchdowns. The fact that you can trust to go to Jamison Crowder at all speaks volumes compared to what the willingness of this offense to even look in Jahan Dotson's direction. They were willing to go to the 4th or the 5th man up in their wide receiver room, and they were able to find success, which spoke volumes in my eyes last week, especially for our team, because you have to be able to use some of those other weapons. Grant Calcaterra, terrible blocker, but he is a very good receiver. So you have to try and use
that terrible blocking showed big time last week.
Massively. Like, if there was a week that you were to say we missed Dallas Goedert the most, I think last week was the week, because you could see from that we need. Damn, Jack Stoll was a better pass blocker or run blocker than Grant Calcaterra. Like, Grant Calcaterra can't even chip properly. He can't really do anything properly. He's a liability out there when it comes to a blocking scenario, which doesn't help the idea of, running the ball more or having Kenny Pickett be comfortable enough to throw the ball. So that's definitely one thing that's frustrating. I mean, the offensive line as a whole last week did not look very good. So hopefully they'll come out a lot better this week. And they'll be prepared to know that, Kenny Pickett's back there. He plays a lot differently than Jalen Hurts. He processes differently. So I'm hoping that the offensive line definitely picks things up this week, because last week was pretty tough to watch with them. But yeah, agreed fully with your statement. They need to 100% be able to confidently look elsewhere. Otherwise, I mean, we said it. They're stacking the box to stop Saquon. And if they know that all they have to do is stop two other guys, it makes their lives so much easier. And you don't want any team's lives to be that much easier. You want to make sure that you can use more of a complement of your arsenal. Even if it's not the strongest in the league, you have to be able to use some of it. And even if you are using your backup quarterback, you have to be able to at least be willing to look in other places and take the shots in other places and with other people.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, the offense has weapons, and the receivers have to catch the ball. We talked about it last week. If Devontae just catches that ball on third down, we're probably talking about a 13-2 football team right now that has the division wrapped up and thinking differently about a potential 1 seed. Excuse me. The 1 seed is pretty much done. So just win the division, get the 2 seed, and go from there. Hopefully get 2 home playoff games before traveling to Detroit or Minnesota, depending on who wins the NFC North. Excuse me. On the defensive side of the football, it's going to be imperative for the front four to get pressure on Cooper Rush. They looked tired last week for the first time, and I think for the first time we really noticed the loss of Brandon Graham. And Josh Sweat did get hurt. He did come back later in the game, like late I think on that last drive, but still they were unable to get pressure on Jaden Daniels. Now, obviously, Cooper Rush isn't Jaden Daniels. He's not going to run around it like Daniels did. So hopefully that helps. The run game for Dallas isn't as good as Washington's run game, and the receivers for Dallas aren't as good as Washington's. So you're facing a not as good of an offense this week as you were last week, and obviously not having to go up against CeeDee Lamb helps things for Quinyon Mitchell, Darius Slay, Cooper DeJean, and the secondary. And having CJ for the entire game will really help, because you saw it in that fourth quarter in that last drive. His absence really shined, and that wasn't good. Also, I think the one thing, and you posted on it on our Twitter page, when Shaq Barrett got released by the Dolphins, and I saw something when he had applied for reinstatement, and I don't know how true this is. I don't know if it was fake, but somebody had put up a message from to Shaq Barrett's wife, and was like, come to, or something about coming to Philly, and she had made a, not verbatim, but she had said something about the Eagles were the reason why he put in, he wanted to get he wanted to come out of retirement. So now that he has cleared waivers, obviously he won't play this Sunday, but if the Eagles were to sign him, that could be a huge play going into the playoffs. Especially, obviously, he's going to have to get into shape, learn, and try to think. He was with Denver. Was he with Denver when Fangio was there? I'm not 100% sure, but he would have to learn the system, unless I'd have to go back and look, unless he was, in Fangio's system when he was in Denver. I'm not 100% sure about that, but that's something to think about. Like, if the Eagles are able to get him, nobody claimed him, because if somebody were to claim him, he wouldn't have been able to play this year. He's a free agent, can sign wherever he wants. Philly, you have to think Detroit. There are a couple playoff teams, obviously, that could that would make sense for Shaq Barrett. So it'll be interesting to see, this weekend after the game against Dallas, if Howie's making that call and if he's coming in for a visit.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I posted about it. I think it would be great to get any weapon away, from anybody else, because, the last thing you want to see is Shaq Barrett go to the Detroit Lions, who definitely are in need of, some edge help, defensive help, any defensive help at all. I think they got about 10 defensive players on the IR alone out of the 18 to 20 that are on the IR currently. So obviously you don't want to let that get away, and you would hope that Howie's making the phone call, because while the edge rushers have stepped up and gotten a little bit better, we haven't seen what we wanted to see from Josh Sweat. Nolan Smith is stepping up, but Nolan Smith alone is not the be all end all that should give you confidence. Bryce Huff returning should not be the be all end all that gives you confidence to turn this edge room around. I get it. His wrist was maybe affecting the way that he was able to play, but he wasn't showing much of anything that gave you confidence that he was going to get after the quarterback. Like, I get the injury and the impact that an injury can have, but you could still show the get off and the at least attempt to get after the quarterback, and we really didn't see that from Bryce Huff before the injury. So hopefully that changes, but hopefully those types of indicators aren't things that have Howie saying, I don't think we need him. We saw the impact of like Ndamukong Suh when we brought him in late in the season. Of course, this is a different level. This is way later than even that move was made. But we saw the impact that even just the extra body can have, especially because we talked about it earlier in the episode about the impact of, having that early bye and the wear and tear on these bodies. And Nolan Smith looks fresh and great because he was playing less than like 30% of the snaps for the majority of the season. And now he's starting to see more snaps, but you can see in some of the other guys, the wear and tear of that long stretch without a whole lot of rest. So hopefully Howie has made the call. Hopefully the discussions are already ongoing. But any type of player taking snaps away from others to help for the benefit of giving them more ability to go is hugely beneficial. So it'll be interesting to see what ends up going down. But I mean, I would imagine by, end of day Tuesday, we know where Shaq Barrett's going to be, because somebody's going to want to be able to put him out there week 18 and start getting used to their system. I mean, to me at this point, put Shaq Barrett on the edge, pin his ears back, and let him go. Don't worry too much about the system in the early going. See what you can get out of him just as a pure edge rusher. Maybe we'll have to wait and see. Of course, this is all dreaming aspirations that we have right now, but definitely, as you said, like without CD Lamb, that's a game changer. You're looking at Jalen Tolbert, Brandon Cooks, Jonathan Mingo, Ryan Flournoy, Kevontae Turpin as like the core players, and it'll be interesting to see because
Jake Ferguson and Rico Dowdle are probably their best offensive weapons right now.
Definitely, Jake Ferguson. If I were to say, Jake Ferguson's probably the best offensive piece to worry about, and it kind of sucks you don't have Nakobe Dean, because that means that a lot more of Zach Bond's attention, because he's been a fairly strong coverage linebacker for us. A lot of his attention may not be able to be on rushing Cooper Rush or working down at the line of scrimmage. He may have to have his attention on Jake Ferguson, but hopefully, CJGJ for full game. Hopefully there's a plan in place, working that slot with Jake Ferguson and taking Jake Ferguson out of the game or out of the mix. Because if you can get him out of the mix, I think life becomes a lot more difficult. Even just Jalen Tolbert, Brandon Cooks, Kevontae Turpin, whoever goes out there. But we definitely have the secondary to do it, and the secondary to take these weapons away. Hopefully we see them in a lot better spot than they were last week. Again, I think I said it in our review and reaction episode. I think that was a blip in the radar. I don't think that that's what we should expect from this defense going forward, and I'm not worried about the defense going forward. I'd be more worried about the offense over anything, even now, because we don't want to have to play full games in week 18 and have, the difference between being, a 2 or 3 seed and a 5 or a 6 seed. We don't want to have that, looming over our head, or 5 seed. I don't think we could go down to 6 or 7, but like the difference between
it's either the 2 seed or the 5 seed.
Yeah. So the difference between being the 2 seed or the 5 seed is huge. It's not just home field
Actually,
stuff.
it can be the
It's
6th
huge.
seed because of Detroit and Minnesota.
Exactly.
One of them is going to be the 1 seed.
I think
so it can be we'll be the 2 or the 6 seed.
Yeah, so you don't want to be the 6. You don't want to go this whole time you've been in the driver's seat of the 2 seed, and a Jalen Hurts injury completely derails and gives Washington that chance in the final 3 weeks.
If you're the 6th seed, you go to the team that wins the NFC West. Like Seattle, you can beat. You've beaten
I don't
the
think
Rams
we
out
want
there.
to think about this as let's try for the 6th seed.
No. I'm just saying. I'm saying like just thinking about potential playoff matchups. Would you rather face Seattle, Washington, Green Bay, or Tampa Bay?
I mean, you definitely want the you hopefully want one of the weaker ones and taking that 6th seed and get in one of those weaker division winners, maybe a plus. I get where you're coming from, but to imagine where this world would be if we went from driver's seat, 2 seed, chance at the 1 seed, and here we are, we lose, because you'd have to lose 3 in a row. You'd lose 3 in a row and land in the playoffs. I would not want to go on a 3-game losing streak into the playoffs. I didn't want to go on a 13-game winning streak into the playoffs, but I don't want to go on a 3-game losing streak into the playoffs either.
Circumstances matter too, because if Jalen doesn't play this week or next week, which I think he would play next week if they need it to win the game next week. But like Kenny Pickett stinks. I don't care what anybody says. So circumstances would matter in terms of how you had that 3-game losing streak. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm just saying, thinking outside the box. One thing, Dallas is trying to play spoiler, obviously. The one thing that they're doing, which I like, is they get eliminated from playoff contention and they win and worsen their draft pick. So that's awesome. I don't think they're going to win. Like, they have us this week and I think Washington next week. And so it'd be interesting, like if they say they did beat the Eagles this week, obviously the Eagles, Giants, and Dallas, Washington game are going to be on at the same time. You wouldn't want, say, Washington and Dallas to play first, and if Washington loses to Dallas, then the Eagles automatically win the division if the Eagles were to lose this week against Dallas. And then that makes that Eagles-Giants game, it's worthless anyway. I just think it'd be funny. Say the Eagles win this week, they clinch division, because if they win the division, they're going to be the 2 seed. They're not going to be the 1 seed. They play all the backups next week, and the Giants end up beating the Eagles, but going from having the number 1 overall draft pick back to like 5 or 6. I think that would be hilarious. And they don't get to get Shedeur Sanders, which everybody thinks they're going to take. Just like the Raiders winning last week, they went from 1 to 7, I think, for their draft selection. I just think that would be funny. I don't even know where else.
Agreed. We want to see our division opponents for sure remain weaker for the longer, or have to throw out a ton of assets to try and then get back to that number 1 or number 2 spot to get, whoever you're going for, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, whoever might be your pick up at the top there. We'll probably dive into it in the offseason, but I don't think this quarterback class is all that great with franchise talent. But we'll see. We will see, and we will discuss in the offseason, I'm sure. But otherwise, you definitely know, like the Cowboys, when a divisional opponent gets the opportunity to play spoiler, you have to be a little nervous because divisional opponents love to be the spoiler. They just love to do that. So that they're going to put their all into it. Mike McCarthy's coaching for a job that seems to be very secure. I don't know how, but it seems very secure right now.
I'm not mad at that.
Good for us. We'll take it. But it's like you said, as far as wrapping up from the defensive side of the ball, this would be a huge bounce back game. It would be a great bounce back game for them. They definitely need it, and they definitely have the right team to get right. Like, when we came out of the bye week and they were doing super good against these weak offenses, everyone was like, well, are they for real? But you need some of those games sometimes to get right and to get yourself headed in the right direction. And so I wouldn't mind seeing them really take advantage of a weak offense of the Dallas Cowboys and get themselves right. And if that means they then get to rest next week, good. They definitely deserve to get some rest. They definitely need some rest. It's been a gauntlet in proving themselves to everybody, proving it to each other within the room, and proving it to the media out there, and proving it to all the different fan bases. They've done a lot, and they've gone through a lot, and you can definitely tell they're battle tested. And last week they made bad mistakes. They made mistakes you don't normally see, and they did not play like the team we had seen on that 10-game winning streak.
Nope, they didn't. And obviously losing Jalen Hurts 12 plays into the game does matter. The defense shouldn't have been affected, but it was. And fortunately for the defense, they're not going up against as good of an offense as they were last week. Division on the line. They have 2 games remaining in the regular season, both at home, both against lesser NFC East opponents, and then they can figure out the playoffs from there. And, let's get into the playoffs as healthy as possible. Jalen should, if they need him to play next week, we'll be able to play. All right. And like I mentioned on the outset of this show, like, this is the least hyped Eagles-Cowboys game I can remember. There's no buzz about it. Obviously with CD Lamb being out, Dak out, DeMarcus Lawrence maybe out, Overshawn out, Diggs out on Dallas' side, Jack Martin out on the Eagles side, Jalen out. While the injuries aren't really there for the Eagles, excuse me, it's just hopefully they can find it is tough to get hype and get up for a team that's coming in. Now, yes, they've won 4 out of 5, and they're your biggest division rival, at least on our end. We think Dallas is the bigger division rival, even though they've been irrelevant for the last 25 plus years. But they've won 4 or 5. They're trying to play spoiler. You still have a division to win. So let's hope that the Eagles are able to handle business, block out all the, I don't want to call it noise because there's not much noise. Just block out all the, boredom, I guess you could say. I don't know if that makes any sense. Boredom of the potential of this game. And go out there and this is a hats and t-shirts game. Go out there, win the game, clinch the division, and take your bye next week before the first playoff game in wildcard weekend. All right. So before we get to our players of the game, keys to the game, and our predictions, it's our unheralded player of the week for week 16 in the NFL. Connor, are you prepared with your unheralded player?
I do. I got one. It's not sexy. It wasn't the greatest of games for him, but he finally got his shot. Michael Penix Jr. And of course they beat up on the lowly New York Giants. So I mean, we can discount it all we want, but finally he got the start. It looks like he's gonna run with this. Will be the only time I'll be able to use him because he's gonna run with it now. They're gonna cut Kirk Cousins. Worst signing of the offseason. And then of course we talked about in the last episode how they tampered. Yep. And they paid the price for tampering to get a guy that they didn't even get through a full season. It's the wildest end outcome for Kirk Cousins and his tenure with the Atlanta Falcons. But Michael Penix, 18 for 27, 202 yards, an interception. And his rushing game didn't look great, but obviously, get your feet under you, get your first chance shot in the NFL, get a W, keep your team alive in the playoff race. And in the divisional race, like it's all important, all encompassing and all important. So I'm giving it to Michael Penix for this week.
I'm going to go with a guy who helped his team snap a 10-game losing streak, and they went from the top pick to 7 as the Raiders defeated the Jacksonville Jaguars 19-14. And this will be the first and last time this guy, I'm surprised he hasn't been used yet. It might not, might not be able to be used, but I'm going to use him anyway. Brock Bowers, 11 catches, 99 yards, broke the rookie tight end record for catches in a season, and I think he's about to break the rookie pass catching, rookie receptions record by any, receiver, tight end, whatever it is. So I'm going to go Brock Bowers, who might be already a top 5, 6, 7 tight end in football. So I'm going to go Brock Bowers. First and last time that he can
I definitely think that you're a little late to that party, but I agree. Like, it's huge. Like, you reach the end of the year.
Again, my criteria
It's
My
super impressive.
my criteria is you have to win before I can use you, and the Raiders have been on a 10-game losing streak, so I haven't been able to use them. They finally won. I can use them now. He'll be put on the back burner because he's past unheralded stage. All right, let's jump. Eagles, Cowboys, prediction time, keys, players of the game, and then I'll give mine, and then we'll give our score predictions. Go ahead, Connor.
I mean, it's not gonna be sexy. It's not gonna be that enjoyable or fun to watch. I
Thank you,
mean,
buddy. I'll
let's
be
be
there.
real. Cooper Rush versus. Yeah, I know. I feel bad for you that this was a game because at the time it's like, oh, this could be mean something for the division, and then as the season rolls on, you see what the final outcome of this is: Cooper Rush versus Kenny Pickett. Like, damn. But I mean, I'm gonna go. My player this week is gonna be Saquon Barkley. I mean, it's just plain simple. There's so much on the line for Saquon Barkley. There's the opportunity to play in Week 18 and go for a 40-year-old record. There's a chance to take complete advantage of a depleted defense, a bad Russian defense in the first place. So I think that, I mean, I could have won with any offensive lineman or the full offensive lineman, big full complement of the offensive line, because they definitely need to get right this week. And they definitely need to help Saquon Barkley get those yards because we're all rooting for it. Let's just face it. We hate the idea of him rolling out there in Week 18, but we love the idea of, especially if it's a meaningless game, but we love the idea of this record-breaking opportunity, a chance that so few have even sniffed or gotten even close to. And I would love to see what it does to the MVP conversation, because everybody said a few weeks ago he had to break this record and they would say he deserves the MVP. What happens now if he actually breaks it? I don't think he'll get it either. I think it's all talk, but I think it would make things interesting to see where all these people have to backtrack.
I think he's the offensive player of the year, and I think Lamar is the MVP.
Yeah, the reality is the MVP is a QB award. Doesn't matter what records.
Even though Jamar Chase leads all receivers in catches, yards, and touchdowns, so he's making a name for offensive player of the year.
You have a triple crown watch guy for the wide receiver position. You have a guy who's about to potentially break a 40-year-old Russian record, and then you're going to give it to a quarterback just because that's how the award works.
Have you seen Lamar Jackson's numbers?
Lamar Jackson's numbers are great,
and Josh interceptions. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, I won't completely discount Josh Allen either, because he's been like, look at the weaponry he's got.
Lamar won the MVP on Wednesday. Did you watch his game? He won the MVP Wednesday.
It was big. Yeah, it was very impressive. It's clearly Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, and I think I agree with you. I think it's Lamar's to lose. But back to the game at hand. So I think you got to go with what's been working for you and try and make it work. You're not gonna necessarily get it the same way. It's going to be kind of a lot of ground and pound because you don't got Jalen Hurts back there. Yeah, Kenny Pickett back there, but you got to get things right with Saquon Barkley and use him and get that offensive line right and take advantage of a bad Russian defense. Defensive side of the ball, I'm gonna go with Nolan Smith. He's been doing well. He deserves to continue to get 90% of the snaps. Bryce Huff's probably going to be back, but he does not deserve to be out there more than 10 or 15 snaps unless he does some magic in the limited snaps he starts to see in the early going. But I think Nolan Smith can have a big night. He's been doing really well. His tape looks really impressive. And we got to get after Cooper Rush. It's plain and simple. Give this offense as many drives as possible because they're going to need it to try and put points up on the board and just keep the points off the board. And that's going to be by putting pressure on Cooper Rush and impacting his game, which is obviously he's like Kenny Pickett. They're both backup quarterbacks for a reason. So, and for the defense, just get right. Just get right. This is your get right game. This is your opportunity. I know you're tired, you're winded. There's a lot of banged up guys, but you got to get right. This is the type of game that got you guys right at the beginning of the winning streak and that turned everyone's perspective on you around. This is a type of matchup that you take advantage of again and just get yourself right and get yourself in the right frame of mind, especially heading towards the playoffs. So those are my plays to watch and keys.
On the offensive side of the football, I was going to go offensive line, but I'm going to change it to Devontae Smith. After that drop last week, I think he's going to want to come out and prove that. I mean, obviously, he catches that ball 99 out of 100 times. And I think he's going to get a touchdown and potentially get a over 100 yards. So I'm going to go Devontae. And then protect Kenny Pickett must protect the football, and the offensive line must protect him and open up lanes for Saquon in the running game. So that's on the offensive side of the football. On the defensive side of the football, I'm going to go Jalen Carter. I mean, he's been really good, and he gets double teamed so much. I was going to go Zach Bond without Nakobe Dean, but I'm going to go Carter. I never go Carter anyway. I think Carter's going to have a big game, stopping the running game, getting after Cooper Rush. There's not many weapons on this Dallas offense, so if they can get pressure on Cooper Rush, force him to throw the ball up to you, get some turnovers. They forced 5 last week and lost. That doesn't happen often. They can force another 5. There's no way they lose this game, and they'll come away with winning the East, and then being able to pick your poison next week if you want to go for the record or not, or to just take a break and have a bye week. But yeah, on the defensive side of the keys on the defensive side of the ball, just get pressure on Cooper Rush, and like you said, it's a get right game. You know, if you get beat by this offense, we have bigger problems than we thought. So I'm going to go Jalen Carter and Devontae Smith. Prediction time. Go ahead, Connor. I already wrote mine down, so it won't be the same as well. Maybe it will be. Who knows? But I can't change
Little
it.
G Griffith, he thinks 28-13 Eagles over the Cowboys. He thinks we kick their butts. I hope we do. But I mean, I think it's going to be ugly. I don't know if I have much faith in a Kenny Pickett led offense. I mean, he was basically hand fed 7 of his points last week just before Jalen Hurts left. He gave you the red zone. You just had to finish that off.
And then Saquon went 68 on another.
And then Saquon went 68 for another one of them. So, I mean, you basically were spoon-fed 14 of your points, despite what people are saying of, oh, well, Kenny Pickett put these points up on the board. I mean, we can argue about that, but I don't think he's going to be able to put up a whole lot of points. It is going to be on the backs of guys like Saquon Barkley, maybe even Kenny Gainwell. Like, it's going to be on the backs of the running backs and not through the air. I think it's going to end up being so gross. 21-13 for the Eagles.
You're serious? You know what I wrote down? I wrote down 21-13. Yeah. And people can't think that we're cheating because you live in a different country than me. So, but yes, I did write down 21-13 too. So I'm 9-6 on Eagles picks. You're 7-8 on Eagles picks. So I guess we can go into the playoffs too with our record, but regular season I win at least because we both picked the Eagles this week. I'm probably both going to pick them next week. So even if like Tanner McKee is playing, or even crappy Ian Book is playing next week, he can beat the Giants. Oh man, I really hope that this game is exciting. As I had mentioned, I'll be there. If I remember, if I'm able to, because service at stadiums is crazy, I'll post some pictures to my Twitter and tag the Kelly Green Hour account, and then Connor does a great job with the Twitter on game days during the week, so he can, post them, or not post them, but share them, repost, whatever it is. We'll see if I get service for that though, because sometimes getting service with 70,000 other fans in a stadium is kind of tough.
And if you see LJ there, go up, take a picture with them, and tag the Kelly Green Hour, because
I will be sitting in section 224.
We would love to see. He only gets out to like one game, and sometimes it's not even at the link each year. So he's at the link.
I was at Texas. I was at AT&T. I was at AT&T Stadium last year.
Exactly. So this is a chance. Go take a picture with him, say hi to him, shake his hand, and make sure you tag the Kelly Green Hour so that we can see that you found him, you saw him at a game. And that we
I'm
do
looking forward.
try. I'm in another country, like you said. I can't get the game, so you're our guy.
I'm looking forward to when the schedule for next year comes out, because I'm gonna do a road game next year, and I know they go to LA to face the Chargers. They go to Green Bay, Kansas City. I think our 17th game might be in Buffalo, and if that's the case, that might be the game, depending on when it's being played. The game, I think it's Buffalo. Excuse me, I'm not 100% sure, but that would be the game if that's the case. But yeah, be there. I can't wait. Looking forward to it. Try to get down there a little early and tailgate. But yeah. Thank you all for tuning into the Kelly Green Hours. The Philadelphia Eagles are set to do battle with the Dallas Cowboys with a chance to clinch the NFC East with a victory or a Washington loss, which we won't know until Sunday night because Washington was flexed to Sunday night against the Atlanta Falcons. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHorrell54. Follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts at Eagles Pinpool Network. The Eagles and Dallas Cowboys are set to do battle. Thank you for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.
Fly, Eagles, fly.